Good morning. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Larry Disparti. I'm an attorney. My law firm is Disparti Law Group. We're here today to announce that we have filed a lawsuit on behalf of Ashley and Chad Peden against the Taylorville Community Unit School District Number 3 and Durham School Services based on acts of sexual abuse that happened to their 10-year-old daughter during the 2023 and 2024 school year. During January 2024, the Peden's daughter was riding a school bus home when she was forcefully cornered within a school bus by a 14-year-old perpetrator and sexually assaulted. This happened multiple times over a week-long period. Equally shocking, on at least 3 occasions, the perpetrator followed Ashley and Chad's daughter off the bus at the community center, followed her behind the building, pushed her to the ground, and assaulted her again multiple times. Ashley and Chad's daughter was helpless to prevent these actions and has been seriously emotionally and physically harmed. We stand with the Peden family today, and our firm has filed a lawsuit today, and we will spare no resource in trying to bring this case to justice. I'd like to introduce our litigation team. First, lead attorney, Cass Casper.
Thank you very much, Larry. As Larry Disparti just said, my name is Cass Casper. I represent the Peden family and their young child, who we're going to refer to as Jane Doe, in this litigation that we filed this morning. Together with myself, the firm's Disparti Law Group's litigation director, Amanda Martin, will be co-chairing the case with me, as well as attorney Bob Fioretti will also be co-chairing the case. Words really fail to describe the horror of having to write this complaint, as our team had to do. We are talking about one of the most vulnerable members of our society, a young 10-year-old special needs girl. 10 years old, special needs. The last week of January 2024, like she'd done so many times before, she gets on the school bus over at Taylorville Junior High School. She is there cornered by the perpetrator multiple times during that week in the corner of a bus seat and viciously sexually assaulted. This young child was so confused and distraught by what was occurring that she did not even understand what was occurring to her as it was happening. As if that's not horrifying enough to all the parents with young children, to our school leaders who are in charge of these young children, this perpetrator, who's 14 years old, 4 years older than her, follows her off the bus at the community center, follows her into the back of the building, and repeats his vicious assaults on her, at least 3 times. As one can imagine, severely harmed by what has happened to her. She's in ongoing therapy and will be for the foreseeable future. We don't know that anything that this lawsuit can do is ever going to make this right for Jane or for the family who's had to suffer with this. We filed the lawsuit this morning in the Central District of Illinois. Within the next 24 hours, it'll be placed out for service of process on Taylorville, as well as on the bus company which was in charge of the bus where this occurred. In the coming weeks, the case will be set for an initial court hearing, and it will be processed through the district. The defendants will have to file an answer or another motion on the case, and then we will go into the investigation stage. As Larry Disparti has said, our firm is prepared to undertake every effort to get to the bottom of the facts of what happened to Jane. We will be interviewing witnesses who may have information. We will be interviewing the school officials. We will be seeking every document, every surveillance tape, every piece of information we can locate to get to the bottom of what happened to Jane. We will uncover, and we will seek. As far as the substance of the Peden family's claims, we are claiming violations of Title IX, which is the federal law governing sex abuse and other types of cases for our young children. We are alleging violations of the 14th Amendment right to bodily integrity. We're alleging negligence by the school district in the fact that this happened to begin with, as well as in how they handled it afterwards, which I'm going to come to in a second. We're seeking justice for the emotional distress, the emotional wreckage that's been imposed on Jane for what happened, and other claims as the case proceeds. The family, Ashley and Chad, they did everything possible once they became aware that these vicious assaults happened. Within a day, they'd filed an order of protection. They'd shortly filed a police report. They contacted DCFS. They contacted everybody under the sun in this area in order to rectify what happened and to get to the bottom of what happened, and in order to start the journey of making sure this can happen to no one else what happened to Jane. Most of what the family has pursued in Taylorville has fallen on deaf ears. This is another component of this lawsuit. The school district, after Ashley and Chad made them aware of this, to say that they engaged in foot dragging would be a fair statement. They did not even bother to permanently or at least long-term remove the perpetrator from the school. The initial plan was the perpetrator would be segregated to a certain part of the school, and young Jane would be in another part of the school. In other words, young Jane would have to live in terror as she continues her education as a 10-year-old of potentially running in to the perpetrator in the school, on the school grounds, at the bus stop. This is the safety plan, I'm going to call it the safety plan, quote unquote, that the school devised as part of their foot dragging efforts to rectify the situation. We ask, can anyone imagine you undergo this kind of assault and the school's response is, well, we'll just put the perpetrator over in another part of the building where you as the victim might run into this person at any time. You're not safe from this person might see you again, might have the opportunity to corner you again. This is a radically deficient response. There was a Title IX investigation that the district undertook. It was more concerned, as we read the report, with vindicating the school district. It was more concerned with absolving the school district of responsibility. It is peppered with statements that, as you read them, question the credibility of Ashley and Chad, question the credibility of the victim. It's full of statements about that, which is highly appropriate for inappropriate for an investigation with these kinds of allegations. The Title IX report notes that there may have been a longer version of the bus video, but they only got a few days of footage, which wasn't preserved beyond that. The Title IX report generally minimizes the district's knowledge, the district officials' knowledge of anything about what happened or anything about the perpetrator's prior background. And it did nothing to answer any of the major questions that Ashley and Chad had about what happened to their daughter. It was a thoroughly inadequate whitewashing job. So the Peden family has been left with no choice but to seek legal recourse because they want to get to the bottom of what happened to Jane. They want to get the full picture. They want to hear from everybody that should have been interviewed in the Title IX investigation but wasn't. They want to get the evidence that should have been produced in the Title IX investigation but wasn't, as part of the process of achieving closure for them, closure for Jane, and justice for Jane and their family. Beyond that, the Peden family, who I'll introduce in a moment, they seek substantial policy changes as part of this filing. We believe, and we want to work hopefully beyond the lawsuit with other partners in the community as part of this dialogue. We believe there ought to be more serious effort to contemplate expulsion of students who engage in this kind of conduct. Sexual abuse of a 10-year-old special needs girl, expulsion ought to be on the table for that kind of conduct. That's one of the items of dialogue the family is rightfully seeking in this litigation. updating the Taylorville Student Discipline Code to create another level of misconduct altogether for student-on-student sexual abuse where there's these kinds of factual differences. A much older student committing a sex assault on a much younger disabled student. That deserves its own level of discipline in the Taylorville Student Discipline Code, which is another change Ashley and Chad very reasonably want as part of this dialogue. Instituting mandatory, repeated student and teacher training about how to spot risks of student-on-student sexual abuse. There are trainings that are done. They're radically deficient. There needs to be more. It needs to be repeated. Every employee in the state of Illinois has to undergo mandatory employment sexual harassment training. There should be a system like that for teachers, school officials, and students about how to spot student sexual abuse issues, and it should be every year. Were that done, maybe what happened to Jane would not have happened. So we seek that as part of our dialogue about these issues. In the meantime, and I'm going to shortly pass it over to Ashley, now that the suit has been filed, we need something, the family needs something from the community. If you have information about what happened to Jane at Taylorville, if you have information, however remote, about the perpetrator, who we're not naming today, engaging in this kind of conduct, if you have information about like cases that happened in Taylorville, please reach out to us. Our firm's number is 312-506-5511, my extension 331. Call me. Call Disparti Law Group with that information. However remote, however unhelpful you might think it is, leads help, and we want them. For the sake of your own children, other children in the community, for little Jane, for Ashley and Chad. So that's a call for help. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Ashley Peden, and she's going to say a few words. Ashley?
Thank you. If somebody had told me just 2 years ago that I would be standing here today, publicly speaking about legal actions my family has taken against Taylorville schools, I wouldn't have believed them. 2 years ago, I was a proud Taylorville school alum. I believed in this district so much that I convinced my husband to buy our first home here, confident that this is the place that we should raise our children. My memories of growing up in these schools were nothing but positive, filled with pride, safety, and a strong sense of community. But here I am today. I'm here because I have a responsibility, not just as a mother, but as an advocate for my daughter and for every student who deserves to feel safe, protected, and valued within our schools. This is not a moment of anger. This is a moment of truth. I'm here to share transparency and honesty, what has happened, not just to my daughter, but what the district has yet to address and continues to permit in the environment around her and her peers. The decision to take legal action was not made lightly. It was after exhausting every appropriate channel I could. It was made after watching my daughter's rights be minimized, her voice be silenced, and her safety be compromised in a space that promised to do the opposite. Our goal is simple. It's accountability, change, and a commitment to ensuring that no child has to endure what my daughter has. To the parents listening today, I see you. To the students who feel unheard, you matter. And to the leaders in education and in this community, it's time to listen, not defensively, but courageously. Thank you for giving me this space to speak today. I will continue to speak on this, not because I want to, because I have to, because silence is no longer an option. I would like to thank Senator McClure for joining us today as he speaks next.
Thank you. So I'm here in my capacity as a private citizen who has been visited by Ashley and Chad, and we've talked about the horrible events that unfolded. And, you know, from the very beginning, the Peden family has said that their only goal here is to make sure that this never happens to anyone ever again. And so, we've worked obviously at the Capitol, and they have just made it abundantly clear that they are going to fight as much as they can, wherever they have to try to protect the safety of the kids all across our state. And so I commend them for that, and I'm here to support them. And I really appreciate what they are doing and what they're planning on doing, because we've got to protect the kids of our state. And if these issues don't get addressed, our kids are going to be in serious danger potentially as the years unfold. One of the issues I've seen as well is, ever since my involvement in these types of cases, is that people are coming from across the state with the same story in different areas. And so this has to be addressed, and I'm here to help expose this and also try to fight this and make policy changes that will make our state a better place and a safer place for our students. So with that, I would like to introduce Bob Fioretti.
Thank you, Senator. I really don't know how much more can be said. These parents are courageous for stepping forward. The Disparti law firm led by Larry, we thank him, we thank everybody there, because we see what happens. Education is the key to the future. I've said that not just once, but 100 times. And education, we need safe environments for our children. But more importantly, when we look at what education should be about, it's about trust. It's trust built in the community, with the parents, with all the teachers. And once that trust is broken, we don't have an educational system. We don't have the ability to go forward. Their daughter, we could say, oh, whatever, the judgment comes down. But I think Cass hit it briefly. Years of treatment, years of her friends who know her are going to have the after effects of what happened. Together, we all must try to do the best we can to join our communities, to pass and work together, do the legislation that's necessary. As Cass said, yes, we are looking for policy changes, and those policy changes are necessary to create the safe environments, the environments where our children, our kids, can learn and move forward. I thank everybody for being here. We're open to questions. I'll turn it over right now.
I've got a couple, if it's all right. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Bob.
You said the school district moved a 14-year-old to another part of the building.
Correct.
But there was a news conference at the Capitol not long ago where this very case, where they said the 14-year-old was put on a different bus with even younger children after all this happened?
That's correct. There was about a 3-week period where that was part of the safety plan, which is another part of the vast inadequacy of the school's response. So this perpetrator abuses a 10-year-old, and the school's solution is, let's put him on another bus with other young students. That's part of the solution? No.
And it's not necessarily part of the suit, I guess. But I mean, that
That-
did happen, put him on another bus, but that's not part of the suit.
That is one of the facts forming the total suit. That's one of the facts in there that we want to have addressed. Yes.
And the other question I had is you've made numerous references to special needs. If I may ask, what do you mean by that?
Because we are dealing with juveniles in this case, we are just going to leave it at special needs, if you don't mind. Thank you.
With this obviously taking the lawsuit being built up over the past, I don't know how long, I guess, what was the roadmap to getting here? Were there more conversations with the district since those initial inadequacies that got it to this point now where this federal lawsuit is filed? Were there conversations about potential settlements before the lawsuit was actually filed in any way? How do we get to this point?
Ashley and Chad respected and availed themselves of the Title IX process. It was the conclusion, the vastly inadequate conclusion of the Title IX process and its appeal that have motivated us to be here today. That Title IX process completed this spring, and it I've outlined some of the inadequacies with it. More will be coming out in the suit. That Title IX investigation was more concerned with absolving the district of liability, its officials of knowledge and responsibility, and it was a whitewash. And it was completed this spring, and now we're suing because it did nothing to help get justice for this child and this family.
Ashley, it was said earlier that your daughter didn't understand what was happening to her at first. How did you become aware that something was happening? Was she able to say anything at some point? What was the beginning, I guess?
I'm gonna take that question, and that's something that we want to keep close to the vest right now as part of the litigation. Generally, the parents became aware very soon after February 1st about the details that happened, and we're just going to leave it at that at this time. But we may provide further updates on that kind of information as the suit goes along.
There's a few different locations mentioned in the lawsuit: a community center, bus stop, things potentially happening, near on school grounds. How does the litigation tackle that when it's multiple locations involved? Is this just involving the school bus incidents? Is this involving the incidents at the community center?
The defendants that we've named so far, and there may be more, but the defendants so far are Taylorville, the school district, and Durham School Services, the bus company. There are Illinois appellate cases that hold very clearly a school district is liable for what happens on the buses with the bus company where it puts its students. The district is liable. So on that basis, we believe that what happened on the bus, the district is responsible for, that what happened at or near the bus stops, both getting on and getting off, the district is liable for. In addition, in the Taylorville School Student Discipline Code, the district takes on liability for what happens on the school bus because there's provisions about expected conduct on the school bus for students, which are not helpful. It didn't prevent it in this case. There's notations in the Student Discipline Code about what happens at or near the place where students are dropped off. That links what happened at the community center, behind the community center, at the community center bus stop, on the bus, at the district school bus stop. All of that the district is liable for. Furthermore, on that point, the Student Discipline Code even talks about off-duty conduct, which is another basis for us to say the district should have had more control about what happened here to prevent it. Other questions?
Senator, I know you had a piece of legislation filed that you already referenced press conference earlier. That bill didn't even go to a committee vote. I'm curious what the hurdles were for that and how what the road for that legislation looks like now that this lawsuit is playing.
Sure. Before I answer that, obviously, I'm here as a private citizen. I'm an attorney. I'm not here as an attorney either. I'm just here to support the Peden family. But that being said, I think that legislation had more co-sponsors than any other legislation in the Senate. So, Cole, I worked that bill really, really hard. And the bill got hung up because there are legislators that do not believe that there should be any expulsion or even suspension for any student at all. If you look during the spring session at the very end, there was a bill that makes it so that you can't expel any student that I think is under the age of a third grader unless they bring a gun to school. So they can attack someone with a knife, they can do all kinds of things, they can't be expelled for it. But that's just showing you the environment. So the plan with the bill is to file it again. Since that bill was filed, as I alluded to, we've had some other people that have come forward to say, well, this didn't just happen in Taylorville, this happened here, this happened here. There was also an incident in Sangamon County involving some preschoolers that I think we might address with some other legislation and maybe have a package of things to present. So we're going to fight that. We're going to fight this battle at the Capitol as best we can. There was an amendment that I wanted to file on that bill. I could never file it because it was stuck in assignments. And so all I can say is that we're going to be back, and the reason for the opposition is this general belief that either as an adult or as a student, there should not be punishment for anyone. And I would suggest that that bill is not really punishment, it's more of a safety issue. And the amendment was going to clarify that if a student was expelled because of this incident, they can still go to an alternative education program where there would be a safer place for all students involved versus staying in the same place. And, can you imagine a victim coming to class the next day and seeing the person who attacked them every day? I mean, there's a focus too much with some legislators on, well, the perpetrator, we got to look out for the perpetrator. What about the victim who can't even go to school without seeing someone that attacked them on a daily basis? I mean, that's devastating. So stay tuned, Cole. We're going to keep working that bill.
All right, thank you, Senator. Any other questions? You, sir.
For Ms. Peden, if you don't mind. Ms. Peden, I believe you had said incidents like this, that your trust in the school system has gone down. You're a teacher yourself. As you look at the situation as a whole, can you describe that relationship and how you're feeling about the school system you work in and how others are dealing with this?
Sure.
I'm okay with it. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So yes, I am an educator, a public school educator, proudly. I do support public schools. I believe in them wholeheartedly. I do not teach in Taylorville school districts. I teach in a different district. And throughout this process, I have leaned on other administration that I have professional partnerships with and asked, is this really how it is everywhere? And I did get comfort in knowing that it isn't always dealt with this in the same manner at every district. It wouldn't have been dealt like this at the school that I teach at. I told my administration confidently and wholeheartedly that if this is what we do at the school that I teach at, I can no longer be employed here because I take value in knowing that I'm walking into a safe environment and all of the children that I am working with are walking into a safe environment. So I can't say that this is happening everywhere. Of course, we do have wonderful schools and wonderful administrations and wonderful board members and that are following policies that they have created. But the problem is we don't have a statewide policy. So some of the administrators that aren't as wonderful aren't doing what they need to do to keep the students safe. So it's just, there's not assurance everywhere, and that's what we need. We need all the kids in every single school to be treated the same and to know that they're safe.
Thank you, Ashley. You had a question, miss.
Is Jane still a student at a Taylorville public school?
Yes, and the reason for that is it's essential to Jane's well-being that we minimize the changes that happen to her. And so we acknowledge that there may be some concern. She's still at the same school. It's in the best interest of Jane to minimize changes, and that's what she needs to do as part of the healing process.
Is the perpetrator still a student at Taylorville school?
We are going to. I can answer that at a high level. The perpetrator, to our knowledge right now, is not still at a Taylorville school, and I emphasize that's to our knowledge now, and I need to just leave it at that about our information about the perpetrator. Any other questions?
Found out that other parents had alleged that the perpetrator also sexually abused other students. Can you speak on that at all?
I cannot speak about that. We do have specific information from 3 other sources that there were similar, not the same, but acts that should have raised questions within the community and within the school officials. We do have information from 3 sources about that. Because of the sensitive nature of this litigation and protecting our evidence right now, we want to just leave it at that. Thank you. Any other questions?
This sort of case that led itself to a settlement?
Well, every case could lend itself to a settlement, and of course, resolving a case is always in the best interest of everyone involved. And, it's a little early to speak on that definitively, but, all options are on the table, and the Pedens come with an open mind just in the hope that we can do this amicably and what's in the best interest of everybody.
Is this federal court because it's a Title IX issue?
It's federal court because there are federal claims involved, a Title IX issue, and a constitutional 14th Amendment issue, for your information.
Got it.
Any others? Oh, you, sir.
Is there any plans for litigation against the perpetrator at any point? I mean, is there anything moving forward with that?
Yes, but uncertain. That's something that is being talked about, is being considered, is being thought through. We don't have an answer for that right now.
Police involved at all?
There was a police report filed by the family almost immediately after this, and it was turned over to the Illinois State Police for them to conduct an investigation, which they did do, and I need to leave it at that at this point. If there's no further questions, thank you all for being here. Really appreciate the turnout, and, oh, Jason?